Hammer, where would you rank that performance from De'Aaron Fox on Saturday in the 6 years he's been in the league?
It was a good one. Yeah. I mean, he's changing his focus. His defense has been great most of the season. He's allowed a couple of blow-bys, but overall, I think he's been really good defensively. He's asked to take on tough covers in crucial moments of games. The rebounding numbers were just absolutely spectacular. 13 rebounds, a career high. Did the shots go down? No, especially in the fourth quarter. I think he missed the last 4 or 5 shots he took, but it shows you that if he does the other things, which Mike Brown has been preaching to him, that the scoring is what they expect. The way they win is for him to do the other stuff,
Mm.
and I think it's really really smart that Mike Brown is pitching it that way, but also that De'Aaron is kind of embracing it and living up to it, and taking on the challenge each and every night. Now they just need to string some wins together.
And the thing about it too, Hammer, that kind of, I don't want to say I like, because that would maybe imply that I don't care about him playing defense throughout the game, which I do. Like I want him to play defense as much as possible throughout the game. But let's just take Saturday, for example. I don't think he would have been guarding Tyler Hero for all 35 minutes he was in the game and asking him to play that type of defense and score 20 something points. And like, that's not it. But I do like the fact that it's another wrinkle to his game where, maybe he's, somewhere else defensively throughout the game. But in the final 5-6 minutes, if there's a guard that's starting to go off, all right, let me guard him, coach. Let me get out there and let me take that challenge to kind of close the game. I like that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what has to happen for this team to get over the hump. I'd like to tell you that they can run Davion Mitchell out there and have him kind of step into that role and shut down somebody. But at this point, Davion's kind of all over the board and seems lost in what's happening in what they're trying to do as a team. And so I think it's going to be on the starters. Mike Brown has talked about this a couple of times throughout camp, that when he was a young coach, that he had like an 8-man rotation. That's it. Like, these 8 players are playing. The other 7 guys are break glass in case of emergency type players. And he's trying to get away from that. But this team in particular keeps drawing him back to that. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard for him not to just play the main core guys and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Why? Oh,
Uh,
That was good,
oh,
oh,
Marley.
it is really close. We'll have to go to the tape to determine if that's it. That feels like a Tyson Douglas like late start to the count. Like that's a tough one, because I just thought James was giving us a short answer. In my head, I'm thinking, God, what's James' problem? Giving us
No,
short answers.
I don't give short answers, and I wasn't even answering your question. I took it somewhere totally different.
Well,
Uh,
and we'll continue, because the when I thought you had stopped the question, I was going to ask you what is the issue? What do you think is the issue with Davion right now?
you know, I'm not sure, because we have this all-in mentality, right? I wrote about it on Sunday. Mike Brown's been preaching it. They made T-shirts. They want the Kings all in, everyone all in. They signed this giant poster on the wall that is some proclamation that we've never seen, but that basically says that you know it doesn't matter what happens with your playing time or your spot in the rotation or anything else. That you need to be all in, and we're teammates, and we're going to do this together. Um, I just, when you watch him, it's really like the old, Sesame Street. Like, 3 of these kids are doing the same thing, and one of these kids is doing his own thing. And you're just sitting there watching him dribble and dribble and dribble, and then other players start to dribble because now he's got them in a position where the clock is ticking and they've got to make something happen.
mhm.
And it seems like a lack of understanding of the concepts, or a refusal to accept the concepts, and I'm not sure which. He's a hard worker. He's a guy who wants to be great and all that stuff. but you're playing behind a point guard who's averaging 27.8 points and 7.2 rebounds and 5.3 assists or whatever it is. You're playing behind an all-star basically. Whether he makes it or not, you're playing behind an all-star quality player, and you're fighting for minutes. And right now, he's getting whatever De'Aaron Fox isn't playing, and that wasn't the plan coming in. The plan was for him to play a lot more minutes in this and to really hold down the fort as a defensive stopper. A lot like how we saw Gary Payton play for the Warriors the last couple of years or last season. Like that's what I think that they envisioned for him. And it just like super early, you can see that he's not in the flow. He's not in what everyone else is doing. And it stands out because you have everyone kind of moving and moving and moving, and him just pounding the rock. And at some point, he's got to figure it out, or he's going to play even less. And I get it. It's difficult. Not only is he playing with new players, but he's being asked to play off the ball even more than he was before with Monk taking over more of a distributor role. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. You got to get in there, and you know this is an opportunity, and you got to take advantage of it if you're a young player.
If you were talking to Davion Mitchell right now, what would you say you want to see him focus on to do the most that he can with the minutes that he gets? Like, would you say just focus on D, focus on moving the ball? Like, what would your advice to him be?
No, my advice would be very specific. Watch the game that's unfolding in front of you. Follow a guy like Kevin Huerter. Watch his motion. Watch where he goes. Watch how he uses his screen. Watch how he gets open and plays without the ball. And then go out there and emulate that. Like we already know, it's kind of like Fox. We already know you're going to be a good defensive player. That's not what the problem is. We need you to fit in on both ends of the court. And, I know Davion wants to be more than just a defensive player, but to me, that's what it comes down to. It's why it sticks out. You're basically it becomes almost like a 4 flat because he's just like doing stuff that the other guys are like, we can't play off you when you're doing this. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We can't play off of you. We need you to do something different. And again, maybe it's a young player thing. Maybe it's just like a stubbornness to embrace what the offensive scheme is, which is not built for a guy like him. But I think he can be an exceptional off-ball shooter. Like I still wonder, like they made adjustments to his shot. It was too flat when he was coming in, and now it's really coming out high, and I don't understand a lot of what's happening there. But I still think this is a player who,
That is official. That is an official freeze. James Ham is frozen. We're going. James Ham going for a triple double here today.
Jeez.
James Ham going for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Going for the trifecta.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get all 3 of them in. Yeah.
By the way, for the radio audience, James froze in spectacular fashion on Friday the moment the show ended. It was really sneaky incredible. That is just the show goes off and James freezes.
The one thing I will say though about what James was talking about with Davion Mitchell, it does kind of feel like he's in that zone. You've seen it from young players where they're trying to find out who they are in this league. And I think that's more so what it is with Davion. What's going to be the thing that I can lean on every single night that's going to keep me in the league for 7 to 10 years? And I don't know if there's a struggle with Davion where he knows he can play defense, but he wants to do more. I don't know, but he's trying to find exactly, this is who I am in this league, and I'm going to embrace it and be a star at my role, as Bill Belichick would play. And it's not uncommon for, like you've mentioned, James, before, a number of different young players in this league. Sometimes it takes them 3-4 years to figure out who they are to be able to stay in this league. And once they find out, then they can take it to the next level.
I totally agree. I think one of the worst parts about it, though, is that if he just does what he's supposed to do within the offense, then he will be rewarded by getting more and more and more. So what he's trying to do feels forced, like almost every time. And it feels forced, again, because everyone else is doing something different than him. And so it's collapsing the lanes. It's not giving him the room to work that you would, that he needs. And it really, it's tough to watch sometimes, but it's not like he's the only one. I mean, we've seen struggles from Chimezi Metu. We've seen struggles from Harrison Barnes trying to figure out how he fits into this whole thing. And, of the 5 games, what Harrison Barnes has had, one 20-point game, one game where he really looked good late in the game and came to the rescue, which was this last game. But the other 3 games weren't good at all. We're seeing Rashawn Holmes really struggle to find who and what he is on this team. I thought he was exceptional against Bam late. I thought, he really stepped in defensively. But on the offensive end, he's totally lost. And I don't blame him for being lost, because this isn't an offense that he's used to running and being part of, and they're not doing some of the things that help him become really good. But if you just watch the players that are on the court and what they're doing, it should be pretty simple. Again, Kevin Huerter isn't lost at all. I mean, that guy's a flamethrower. And if you can't watch what he's doing and learn and take in from it and just look at how he's moving off of screens, even if you can't shoot like him, you can still get open like him. You can still move and keep the spacing for others like he's doing. And again, one of the things that I always point to is when if someone is really struggling, or maybe struggling with who and what they are and what's happening, is when they look over and they see their man about to check into the game, and before that can happen, they make sure they get one more shot up. And that's always a sign of like, okay, man, what are we chasing here? Like, because that's not, if it was the right shot, that's fine, but it doesn't feel like it's the right shot. And, he's got some figuring out to do, and that happens with young players.
You caught my attention a second ago when you said this is a new offense that's maybe not doing what helps Davion offensively. What does Davion need offensively?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the problem that I have with this is that he's a guy who played with multiple point guards at the college level, right? So we can't say that he doesn't know how to play off ball. He does know how to play off ball. I mean, it just is what it is. At Baylor, I think they had 3 point guards starting, with him being one of them. So he didn't always have the ball in his hands, but there's a difference between being a lead guard that always has the ball in your hands and being a guard in a motion offense like this. Like, you've got to, it's the 0.5, right? We keep hearing this, Mike Brown, is one of his basic tenets, 0.5. And people are like, what does 0.5 mean? And that means that you need to mentally make a decision about what's going to happen within 0.5 seconds of you touching the ball. That's it. And there is no 3 seconds. There is no 7 or 8 dribbles. None of that. You need to make your decision within 0.5 of a second and move on. You have the ball, you're either shooting it or you're moving it to the next guy. And that's kind of what they have to get used to. That's what he has to get used to. It's the thought process is quicker. And I'll tell you, the same thing with Rashawn Holmes is having a difficult time because he's not showing up to go set the screen until way too late. And so where you're seeing, Sabonis come right down the floor, get into the offense, and instantly start setting screens, Holmes will run down into the block and then start meandering up to the top of the key. Again, the 0.5 seconds has already happened. We're now at 3 seconds, and the shot clock is ticking, and you haven't got us into the offense. And so these are the things that some of these players need to pick up on, that they're just not getting into the standard regular offense this team is trying to do early enough, or even on the defensive end, they're making some of the same mistakes. It's all about reading and reacting. It's great that Davion is fighting through every screen and jumping these routes and all that stuff, but sometimes that's not what the play calls for. Sometimes you need to switch. Sometimes you need to go one way because your guy's already switched over, And now all of a sudden we got a guy who's running loose because you're trying to jump through every screen like crazy people. And so, yeah, I just think he's trying really hard. And I think a lot of times when players do that, you start to see it. And I think he'll be okay. I just think it's going to take a little while for him to get comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. Well, one of the other things about it, though, James, because I completely understand what you're saying, where you play well, that's how you're going to get, your minutes, by going out there and essentially forcing the coaches to keep you in the game, right? Like I can't take Davion out. He's playing so well right now. But I also think about this. Where, in your opinion, where would those minutes come from? Because he's not getting them from Fox. He's not getting them from Huerter. He's not going to get them. Maybe it's from Harrison, but then you get into Keegan and Sabonis, and that's out of his, his weight class, so to speak. Where would those minutes even come from? Like, I think a part of it has to be like, hey, just play well. Like, I'm not even going to guarantee you if you play well, you're going to get more minutes, but just play well right now, and things will work out the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where the minutes come from. Again, I thought coming into the season he would schedule to probably play 22 to 24 minutes per game, and that's not the case at all. I mean, we talked about this a little bit. I still think that there's a weirdness when this team breaks from the groups that had played together. Like, we have the 5 guys who are starters who have played together. When that is kind of upset when you add 2 to 3 guys in, like, everybody looks like they haven't really played together very much. And so, again, these are things where we always talk about it. It's just they need more time in the pot to simmer. And I know some people go, well, how come it's working so quickly with Utah? Like, look, I haven't looked at Utah's schedule. I haven't broken down, like, why it is that they've won the way that they have. It just works out that way sometimes. It's not like the Kings are going out and getting just absolutely blasted by teams. The only game that really didn't feel like it was all that close is the Memphis game. The Warriors game was clunky and weird, and I don't know how to even assess that game. But the other 3 games have been really tight games, really competitive, really hard fought. And if you would have hit free throws in the first 2 games, this team could be 3-2, like, very easily. So I think that, like, the panic button shouldn't be hit, not yet. Give this team time, and let's see where they are at the 20-game mark, at the 30-game mark, and then let's see if they have to, at that point, make major adjustments or start playing for something different.
How do you feel about, just by the way, for those who are just tuning in and don't know this and are only listening to James's voice, the Kings actually did win on Saturday.
Yeah.
What did you think of what did you think of the rotations on Saturday? Because that was a big discussion with us on Friday.
Yeah, I thought that they were tighter. Like, I think the players that you thought coming into the season that would play heavy minutes played heavy minutes, and I think the only reason we saw some variance on that was because Sabonis just, I don't even know what to say about that. I don't know what the officials are doing with Sabonis, but I'm watching him get held and beat on and then touch fouls. Like, how many touch fouls of his 6 would normally not be called at all? Just really strange to me, the way that he's being officiated. And I know it's not because he's known as, like, a dirty player or something. He's hard. He's a hard-nosed player that, gets in there and gets physical, but it just feels like he's getting sent to the bench so often by the officials. And so that's hard to watch, but, like, if we take out that, I think the rotation would have looked even different. It would have looked a lot different. I don't think you would have we would have seen all the mixes and matches that we did see. I think that
probably wouldn't have seen Alex Len.
No, we wouldn't have seen Alex Len. Yeah. And I'd also say this: Trey Lyles should be in the rotation. Like, again, until you stop making mistakes and until you're able to build on something and really get this offensive scheme down, I will take Trey Lyles over your guy, Terrence Davis, like, every step of the way. And it's not because I think he's a better player than Terrence Davis. It's because right now he is stability. he's a guy that when you put him in there, it's it's almost like when you drop in Keegan Murray, you feel this calmness and this there is no panic, there is no like huge mistake coming. When you put in Trey Lyles, you feel the same way. He may not do, I mean, he's not going to score like Keegan Murray, but he's also not going to make a bunch of mistakes and he's not going to cost you. And I thought it was interesting, even in that game, man, they had Trey Lyles defending Jimmy Butler. Like I thought, I was like, holy cow, he's defending Jimmy Butler for stretches. Like that guy has an ability to just be calm and just be a high basketball IQ player who fits into the system and you can keep rolling. And I think when they get away from that and they start like again, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, Terrence Davis might be a better player to put in this offense when it's rolling, when it feels more comfortable, when everybody knows what's happening and can play off of each other and they're starting to build, sort of like the second and third and fourth option off of each play that they have, then you can start getting more creative. But for right now, when things are, a little clunky, a little all over the place, a guy like Trey Lyles to me makes perfect sense. So I would keep playing Trey. I would keep feeding minutes to Malik Monk because even if his shot's not going down, he's really been exceptional as a secondary playmaker. I would play Kevin Huerter until the wheels fall off, and I would put him more at the three. Give him and Monk and Fox some time together, some more time together. So again, I wouldn't expand the rotation. I would narrow the rotation to the 8.5 guys that we've talked about in the past, and really focus on that group and try to get everything right, and then start peppering in these other guys and give them a shot to, kind of fill a different type of role.
Yeah, man, I like Trey Lyles. I like what he brings to the table. I think he's a guy that, like you mentioned, James, he doesn't take a whole lot off the table. Is he spectacular? No, he's not a spectacular guy, but somebody's double teaming or somebody's helping off. Trey Lyles got an open shot. I feel confident that he's able to knock that down on a routine basis. I feel confident that he's going to get in there and at least fight on the boards, if not outright get rebounds. Like you say, he doesn't take a whole lot off the table. And I don't know where those minutes come from. It seems like on Saturday it came from Terrence Davis. I don't know if maybe they continue to come from Terrence Davis or they come a little bit from Harrison Barnes or whatever the case may be. But I agree. Trey Lyles should be in this rotation. I think he is absolutely one of the Kings' best 7 to 8 players.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because that means that someone else is out of the rotation. And I get it. And again, it's a long season. You're going to need time for specific guys. You're going to have moments where you need more scoring punch or you need more flexibility as a defender and things like that. But for right now, man, I would even use Trey as like a small ball 5 in a lot of situations. Like this team has got into situations multiple times where their opponent goes small and then they're still trying to go big or they're still trying to fit guys in that maybe don't fit the style of play that's happening on the court. And I think Lyles is a guy that can, again, it's not going to be spectacular, but that's not what you're looking for from him. And Trey has accepted the role, and it's kind of like what we talk about with, some of these other guys that aren't fitting in. Like the reason why Trey's fitting in is because he understands what his role is on that team, and he's not going to fight it. He's not going to go try to do something that's outside of who he is. And again, it's a lot like what we're seeing with Huerter. Herter's doing the same thing he's always done. He's just getting more shots and getting more opportunity because that's this offense. And he's just flourishing. I mean, he's shooting 54% from 3. It's absolutely crazy. And we're talking about 8 attempts a game. I mean, a guy goes 7 of 8 from 3. Like, just keep shooting it. And so I really like some of the things that are happening. And we're slowly starting to see these pieces fit together. And we still haven't yet seen all of them fit together in one game. And that's going to happen. And that's when this team, you're really going to go, okay, now I see the outline of what it's supposed to be.
What happened in the third quarter? We were talking about that earlier, and it felt like they got comfortable and just kind of, they weren't crisp anymore. The things that were leading to guys being open, they were just kind of throwing the ball around. They were extremely comfortable. coming out of halftime. And obviously, Miami's a great basketball team. They made adjustments as well. Eric Spoelstra made adjustments. Those guys were really aggressive. That combined with kind of the lax effort from the Kings resulted in that 6-minute stretch where the game got uncomfortably close for Kings fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but again, remember that Mike Brown is just getting used to this team, and he's got to figure out a way to fire these guys up coming out of halftime, because that's what I saw. It was the first minute of the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. I jokingly said when I walked to my seat, I walked by Brendan and Frankie and some of the other guys, I'm like, what was it, 22-point halftime lead? I said, what, Heat by 3? And on my way to my seat. And then they're like, oh, you jinxed them. And I'm like, look, this team does not know how to come out of a third quarter and like put a statement. And it didn't help that like as soon as you tried to put like your stamp on the game, that Sabonis just gets called for 2 or 3 cheapies. And you're like, what in the world? Like who is officiating this game? And why is I still don't understand the replay system, why they can't give more than one. If you're right the first time, you should get a second one. And if you're right on your first 2, you should probably get a third. It's about getting it right. It's not about like embarrassing somebody. How many times did it feel like they got something wrong in that game?
A lot.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything involving Sabonis. Everything
was,
involving Sabonis was wrong.
Yeah, you just kept turning your head. And I found like this season, like the first quarters feel like they're taking like 45 minutes. Like what is going on? And you look up and, both teams are already, they're in the bonus, but they've already shot like 8 to 10 free throws in the first quarter. And just like, who told you guys that fans were coming out to see you? Nobody wants to hear from you. Like, let the game play. Let the action happen. If something's egregious, if something keeps happening, that's one thing. But then, like, the flip side is you turn around and De'Aaron Fox is like number 2 or number 3 in the league in shots at the rim. And he's averaging 4.4 free throws per game, which is so far below what he should be averaging. And even that doesn't make any sense. So it really does feel like it's lopsided most of the time. And I get why the fans are always on the officials completely. This season specifically feels like they're taking the flow out of the game and really making the game not fun to watch early in it.
Yeah.
I'm with Mrs. Mac-10. She says you should get your challenge back and an apology. I think when the referee turns on the microphone, they should go, hey, sorry, coach.
My bad.
Yeah. Sorry, coach. You get your challenge back and a sincerest apology from our officiating crew.
Yeah.
We'll talk more Kings basketball. So the Kings get their first win over the weekend, Saturday afternoon at the Golden One Center against Miami, and then they had to hop on a plane for their first real road trip of the season. They've got the Charlotte Hornets coming up in about 30 minutes. We'll talk to James Ham about that game when we return here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. How was your weekend, Hammer?
It's good. I mean, the early games, that's nice. Get out of there, get home.
Yeah.
Get to spend some time with family. Sunday's my football day with my son. I mean, the whole family's here, but me and my son primarily sit in the bar and watch football from start to finish. Yeah.
It was 37-0, Kenny. The actual score is 37-0. Patriots to 49ers tweets. And I think if you go Patriots, 49ers, Kings, it's 37-0-1.
Come on, man.
Those are tweets from your local sports leader, as they're now dubbing themselves, James.
Bro, that's
They're
crazy.
calling themselves local sports leader?
I received a call on Friday night to tell me that was, or not Friday night, Saturday night, to tell me that was a promo that they had built out and put on the radio.
Like the sports leader?
Very similar. We're apparently Sacramento sports leader and local sports leader.
And what?
That's a great question.
Like, I mean, this is based on. Well, I mean, I guess at this point,
Imagination, James, maybe
I
based on
guess,
imagination.
I guess at this point, like in our society, you don't have to have anything backing anything up, so can just throw shit against the
Yeah,
wall and see if it
pretty
sticks.
much.
Sorry about that, folks, but yeah.
You're
Let's
allowed
see.
to say
People
that.
ask, "How is my fantasy team?" My fantasy football team is going spectacular. We have improved to 6-2. My fantasy basketball team is absolutely trash, but my goal is I don't care who I'm playing, as long as I beat one person every week, they can suck it because my team is bad. My keepers were bad that I inherited. It's not pleasant at all.
Fantasy basketball is kind of whack.
I haven't played it in like 25 years, so
Neither have I. I've tried it one time. I didn't like the experience. I never went back.
yeah.
Back.
We survived our Mahomes bye week and scored like 120 points this week. We had a good week. And our highest scorer was we picked up Taylor Heineke and he put up like 20.88. So that was our highest. So everyone just like chipped in. It was good to see.
Corey's asking, how good are the Yeti cups? Honestly, bro, I think they're a gimmick. I think you could get a cup off Amazon for like a quarter of the price and get the same thing.
I get the Costco cups, the big silver tankers, and they always seem to be just fine.
What are Yeti cups?
I think it's a gimmick, huh?
What are Yeti cups?
They're supposed to keep your ice frozen and your drink cold or hot or whatever. I honestly think any cup made like this is going to do that. It's a gimmick.
I have a Contigo, and those things were pretty damn good.
Somebody asked who my keepers, Curtis, my keepers in this fantasy basketball league that I was asked by a group of fans to join were Chris Middleton, out, Anthony Davis, mentally checked out, and Fred VanVleet. I did have the first pick in the draft, but it's a 14-man league, which means I got Jaylen Brown and then had to wait for like 72 hours before I got to choose again. And by that point, I'm scraping the barrel.
Wait a minute. Because it's a keeper league. I'm about to say Jaylen Brown was your first pick?
No, but he didn't get kept, which I was slightly surprised. Yeah, it's going to be a rough season. Yeah. I did have to waive Josh Primo. I'm sure I could change my name to something creative at this point. I just got in this fantasy league. Again, I haven't played forever. My fantasy football league, this is, I don't know, Cogis 831. My main fantasy football league has been, I think this was year 30. So
Just call him Albert.
we've had that league forever. We've actually, over the course of our league, we've had two. It's been around so long. We've had two people pass away.
Oh man!
I mean, the league is
Stay
30
out
years
of that
old.
league.
The league is 30 years old.
Man. Told you fantasy football will kill you. Jesus, James.
Oh, look who it is. Derrick Jones Jr. I always like Derrick Jones.
Yeah, me too.
There should be a pregame show on by now, shouldn't there? Yep.
You know,
Pregame live. Oh, this is soccer. What is going on?
Somebody said the game wasn't going to be on today due to soccer. I said, I don't know about
There ain't no way that's the truth. They are not airing Premier League or whatever this is.
I would point out, though, I'm not sure how you're going to do pre and post game interviews with no media. And
yeah, that'll be interesting.
And we no longer have Zoom because that's a decision by somebody.
How about this Kings pregame live? Bang, got it.
There
All
we
right.
Got it.
There's like 10 NBC Sports Californias. I don't know which one to pick. One of those commercials, huh, Jesse?
baseball on today.
Glad to see this was addressed.
Playing fantasy Queen Elizabeth and Betty White. Thanks, Rich could be anywhere. Chris, you're asking what do I mean by no media? I mean no one is traveling.
Hold on, James.
All right.
You know the best part about the producer camera is when I get agitated, I can see Jesse laughing at me now. Jesse knows I'm agitated about something, and I could just see him in the studio laughing. That's the great part about our stuff. As he turns his studio camera off, we welcome you back here, D'Lo and KC, along with 1320 Kings insider James Ham. Kings basketball coming up.
I was about to say de facto pregame show here.
That's it, man. It's been a 4-hour pregame show with a little 49ers and NFL action mixed in as we've got Kings basketball coming up 25 minutes from now, James. It's the Kings versus Charlotte. Been some memorable matchups against Charlotte in recent years. Some memorable outcomes against the Hornets in recent years. But here the Hornets are, sitting at 3-3 with some guys who can pose some problems for the Kings. One thing that I really liked coming out of Saturday's game, James, besides the W, when you dig a little bit deeper into the numbers, Kings had 20 points in the paint in the first quarter. They finished with 52. They won the points in the paint battle for just the second time this year. They did it against Golden State. Of course, that stat doesn't matter when the other team hits 1 billion three-pointers. But Kenny and I were kind of looking at this Charlotte team like, all right, you got Plumlee, got PJ Washington, who played really, really well the other night. Like, this is a team that Sacramento could potentially be physical with down in the restricted area.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's been searching for a center for a while, and but it's a team that usually plays Sacramento pretty tough. You brought up PJ Washington. He lit the Kings up and had a career high against them.
What do you have, like 42 that time or something like that?
He had a lot. I just remember it was like that. It was like a Derek Smith moment where you're waiting for them to trade like De'Aaron Fox for him. Like you just trade everyone for PJ Washington. Yeah, so he's good and he's played them tough. I'll also say this, like Fox, him and Dennis Smith Jr. are part of the same draft class, and Dennis Smith Jr. has got the best of Fox a couple of times, and that's going to be one where, this will be sort of one of those first few tests of which De'Aaron Fox shows up. Like when it's up against an opponent that isn't in your same like zip code, like how do you handle yourself? And we've seen Fox play well against Dame. We've seen him play well against like Reggie Jackson. I don't think anyone could have stopped Steph, so I'm just going to throw that one out the window. But even Ja, I thought he played really well against Ja. He played really well against the Miami Heat. What does he do when the competition level is different? And this is one of those things where if he steps up and is a player that he can be and has shown to be even this season, then the Kings will win. If he doesn't, then they're going to struggle. And that's something that I think that as much as anything, he needs to wear this season in particular, that it's every game. There are no more TJ McConnell moments where he just takes you to the woodshed. That doesn't work this year.
Dennis Smith Jr., ironically enough, has actually played pretty well to start the season. Like I've always been a fan of his game. Whether or not he understood what he needed to do in this league, that was always something else. But he's actually started the season off playing pretty well for Charlotte. So it'll be a good, everything that you just mentioned as well, James. It'll be a good matchup for De'Aaron. One of the things that I look at when they play Charlotte, and you have a guy like Kelly Oubre Jr., who's a wild card on and off the field or off the court, but he's a guy that can win you a game if you're Charlotte, and a guy that can lose you, can shoot you out of the game as well. If you're the Kings, how do you look at somebody like Kelly Oubre Jr.? Do you like try to make sure he doesn't get going at all, or do you look at is it a situation where like we're going to let him do his thing? We're going to make sure we take care of everybody else, the PJ Washingtons, the Dennis Smiths. Like, are you overly concerned about Kelly Oubre? Is what I'm saying essentially.
No, I think specifically with Oubre, if he's hitting his three, then he becomes really, really dangerous. If he's not, then just force him on the perimeter. Don't let him get out in transition. Ease off of him, when he's sitting there outside the three-point line. Make him beat you with a couple of threes. I know he came in last year to a game where it was early in the season, I believe, and he was shooting like something ridiculous, like 11% from three coming in, and he just torched the Kings. And Fox even brought it up. People forget he and Fox and Justin Jackson, and there's a couple other guys, they all played on an AAU team together in Houston when Fox was young. He's a couple of years older than Fox, but they're all friends. He's super close. And, he was like, what are we supposed to do when Kelly, who hasn't hit, anything all season long, walks in and starts burying three after three? I would allow him that opportunity to beat you from three. Because if you let him get downhill on you, he's dangerous. And if you let him get in transition, he's really dangerous. So get back on defense, that's for sure, and make him beat you from the outside.
Well, when you can hit 29-foot threes like Kevin Huerter did regularly in that game against Miami, Kings are going to beat a lot of teams from the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Huerter starts to heat up, we've only seen him have one really bad game, right? So, like, if he can stay hot, I'm not saying 54% hot. That's crazy talk to expect that from anyone. But the biggest thing for me is, like, I want to see every single game him hit that magic number of 8. He needs 8 attempts from 3, and I think he even needs 10 and start getting up into Buddy Hield range. He's that good, and he needs to know he's that good. And, we talked about it before the season, and I said if he can shoot 3 more 3-point attempts per game, and if he can get to the line at least 2 to 2.5 times per game, he's going to average 16 to 18 points per game. And that's right where he is right now. And I think the good thing is you still feel like there's so much more. Like, we're just like hitting the tip of the iceberg with him. And if he embraces,
led the team in assist on Saturday. That's amazing.
Yeah, he's a great passer. Like, he's, again, in the starting lineup as a secondary playmaker, or even as a third playmaker with Sabonis and Fox, then, it works. I'd also like caution that, because if Sabonis is in the game, then we see a totally different outcome. And I think Fox even didn't put up big assist numbers. I also felt like a lot of the passes Fox made were really good passes, and guys brick shots. They missed open shots. He should have had, 3 or 4 extra assists in that game. But this is a game, like, again, you can't look past a team like Charlotte. You're a team that has fought really good 4 out of 5 games. You could even say 5 out of 5. I don't think that they embarrass themselves against Memphis. But you get to some games where you have an opportunity to win. This might be the first game out. I think they were favored in the opener, but this is probably going to be the first game that they're either, favored by a point or like an even split.
Somebody said earlier it was Kings -3.
Yeah. Okay. So they're favored by 3.
But I know somebody in the chat had mentioned that.
That makes sense. So, but this will be like the first game since the opener that you can say that. And that's really tough being on the road. That means the home team always gets a +3. So that means that they think that the Kings are 6 points better. And that's pretty crazy to me. But either way, I mean, I think that this is an opportunity. And when you drop 4 straight to open the season, this is not a team that can waste opportunities. They have to take care of business here. They have to fight the good fight against Miami on, Wednesday? And then they need to look at Orlando as another team that hasn't figured out how to win yet. And they need to go in and get a road win there, especially when you see Golden State, on Sunday.
Yeah.
or Monday. So yeah, I mean, these are games where Mike Brown has them ready, but you can't look past these guys.
Yeah. One of the things that we talked about earlier, James, was the bench and the production of the bench, and what do we feel like they need from the bench to win? So, for instance, in the Heat game, it was Trey Lyles coming off the bench with 10 points. Nobody else really did much else. Malik Monk, 6 points. I agree with you. I liked his playmaking ability in that game as well, even though if the scoring numbers weren't up. But because the starters were able to all be close to 20 points, except for maybe Harrison Barnes, who had 11, 20 points or more, is that kind of the formula where they just need maybe one guy from the bench to show up in the scoring department, or should they not rely on the starters all being close to 20 and they need maybe two guys from the bench to show up?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I don't think you're going to have a lot of games where Sabonis plays like, what do you play, like 22 minutes, 23
Yeah,
minutes?
right.
Yeah, and I mean, Sabonis would have gone for 30 at least in that game. I mean, he was rolling when they took him out of the game with the foul issues. Like, look, I think that this season is going to be weird in that, especially until Mike really gets a handle on his group, he needs that starting rotation to play 36 to 38 minutes a night unless they're playing back-to-backs. If you're playing back-to-backs, and I get it, cut these guys back a little bit. But when you're playing every other day, man, put these guys out there for 30, 36, 38, 40 if you have to, especially young legs, Fox, Keegan, Huerter, all of them, super young legs. Run them out there and see if you can pick up some wins here. And that's what it's got to be about. They've got to focus on being as tight as possible. If the bench can give you 30 points in a night, that's great. If they can give you 40 and pick you up one or two nights, that's fine. But let guys like Trey Lyles do what they should do, which is score like 8 to 10 points per game. If he gets up to like 14, that's fine. But he's not being asked to do that. I would expect Monk to be more in the 13 to 15 point per game range. And then again, if you look at the way the scoring's gone so far this season, we talked about this a couple of times before. Like, who would be the Kings' third leading scorer, assuming that Fox is going to be here and Sabonis is going to be around 20. Well, Sabonis is a fourth leading scorer right now. He hasn't had a big scoring outbreak game. And that's coming. Like, he's going to start scoring and going to be a reliable scorer for you. So once that happens, like, I really do think it falls into place with guys like Huerter and guys like Keegan Murray being extremely valuable pieces that can get you quite a bit of points.
James, one of my favorite stats, or perhaps my absolute favorite stat for the Sacramento Kings right now, is their assist total. They're averaging 27.4 assists per game. That's good for eighth in the league. Interestingly enough, the Charlotte Hornets, their opponent, coming up in just a couple of minutes, they're averaging 28 assists per game. Good for six. Is that a number you think, by the way this offense is constructed, is that a number that you think could be in that vicinity of 27, 28 assists a game for the season?
Yeah, I think so. And I'd even point to, like, assist per game is one way to measure it. Like, assist percentage is an easier way because it bases it off of basically like 100% possessions, right? And it strips away the pace, like, because you can play a really good game and have 20 assists because there weren't that many possessions, right? So assist percentage, the Kings right now are they are sixth in the NBA at 65.9. They're right behind the Golden State Warriors. The Spurs are still leading the league. So that's one number I would point to. So I think that's huge, and I would keep circling back to that. I think that's tremendous. And then
I'm sorry, real quick, hit me again. What is that means the amount of field goals they score that are assisted?
Yeah, it's the percentage of field goals basically that they that are assisted, and that's and I think it's based off of possessions. So yeah, I'll get deeper into that stat for you guys for next time. The other stat I would point to is something we talked about coming into the year, where the Kings' defense is better right now, but a lot of their defense being better is based off of their defensive rebounding stat, which right now they're second in the league in defensive rebound percentage. And so what I mean is, like, you can look at a raw number and say the Kings are averaging 45 defensive, more like 38 defensive rebounds per game, right? But that puts him at like 12th. That could be because there just aren't that many rebound possessions, or there are not that many rebound opportunities for them. There could be either a bunch of made shots, or there could be, there are other reasons why there are fewer defensive rebounds, like just a raw number. So right now the Kings are second in the league in defensive rebound percentage, and it's crazy. Their stats are really good. They're right there with the Toronto Raptors. That shows you that their system is working, and that's why you keep seeing Mike Brown say, we're going like this, whether you guys see it or not, we're starting to climb. You're just not quite seeing it yet. And I agree with him. You start seeing some of the raw numbers that they can really change and impact the game the right way. They're doing good things. The fact that De'Aaron Fox had 13 rebounds is crazy. But if you look at some of the other guys who didn't have rebounds, like Fox stepped up and got a bunch of boards. That's great. But it was because Sabonis only played a handful of minutes. He only had 6 rebounds. Yeah. So, there are other guys that have to step up in that. Even Keegan Murray, he's only averaging 4 rebounds a game right now. Like, there will come a point where Keegan Murray takes that number and blows it away. I mean, he should be up around 7 rebounds a game by the end of the season. And we just haven't quite seen that be something that's really high on his priority list. Plus, I think part of it's because he's playing above the break a lot of the time, and so he's not a guy who's crashing for rebounds.
Just having fun with this here, James. We come in tomorrow. We talk to you on Wednesday. Maybe the 6 things after the game. The Kings win. How do they win tonight?
How do they win tonight? I think they win tonight by not letting any single player have a career night. And it's something that against Charlotte that they've had become an issue time and time again, where it's someone random that just torches you, whether it's Oubre, whether it's PJ Washington, whoever it might be. You can't let Terry Rozier go crazy if he's playing. I haven't looked.
Yeah, I think he's out today, by the way.
Yeah. You can't have Dennis Smith Jr. go for a career high.
James,
like those are
night.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Is he even playing? I don't know what's happening there.
He played on Saturdays, though. Yeah.
Well, he's a bit of a train wreck himself, so I'm hoping that situation figures itself out. They have a lot of internal crazy, wild stuff going on. So, it's a different team than it was last year, and they're a bit beat up. You got to take advantage. You can't look past anybody in this league, especially when you're 1-4, and the Kings should not be a team that's looking past anybody.
I'm gonna go a different direction. Kings were so good from 3 on Saturday. They just gonna keep shooting 45% from 3? Because if they don't, my thought is give me 55 plus in the paint. Give me 55 plus in the paint, and they beat the Charlotte Hornets. Because if that 3-point percentage comes back down to earth a little bit, that's all right. That's all right. You got those points around the basket to make up for it. Assuming, of course, Sabonis doesn't foul out by the third quarter.
The 3rd minute of the game.
Or that, yeah.
I like that. I like that. I'm going with the Kentucky connection. I think they're gonna ball out tonight. I think Fox will ball out tonight and help them get to a win.
Well, I mean, they got a good shot here. This is what you're hoping.
Feels like
for.
a Malik Monk night. Oh, Malik Monk revenge game.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Oh, aha.
We didn't forget Jordan smacking him in the back of the head.
This could also be one of those Rashawn Holmes showcase games.
That's one of the funniest clips of all time.
Yeah, him getting smacked.
Oh, that's tremendous. I mean, it's funny to us. I doubt that it's funny to Malik Monk. We've been trying to put Rashawn Holmes on the Charlotte Hornets for like a year now. I'm not.
It's more like two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 years.
It's more. It's
fair
more than
enough.
that. Yeah.
Well, Go watch Kings basketball, man. Lock into James Ham on Twitter. Follow along with the game. Get those 6 things after. Subscribe to the Kings Beat YouTube channel. Lots of people watching on YouTube. Appreciate you for being with us. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up.